The Empire had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had conquered over 400 star systems. They had crushed thousands of species under their boots. They had never lost a single war, not one. Supreme Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue planet on his screen. Earth, the humans called it, a small world orbiting a small yellow sun in a quiet corner of the galaxy. His scouts had watched these creatures for 3 months. They had studied their broadcasts, their wars, their history. Laughed when he read the reports. These humans were pathetic. They fought each other constantly. They divided themselves by the color of their skin, by invisible lines on maps, by which gods they believed in. They lived only 80 years on average. Their bodies were soft and weak. They had no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. "This will be our easiest conquest," told his council. "These creatures cannot even unite against each other. How will they stand against the might of the Empire?" The council agreed. They always agreed with. On Earth, it was a normal Tuesday morning. In Seoul, Captain was drinking coffee in her office at the United Earth Defense Fleet headquarters. She was 34 years old, with short black hair and eyes that had seen too much death during the Mars colony uprising 5 years ago. Her father had been a general. Her grandfather had been a soldier. War was in her blood. In his laboratory at the Seoul Global Research Center, Dr. Park was studying radio signals from deep space. He was 41, thin, and always forgot to eat when he was working. He had spent 20 years searching for signs of alien life. His colleagues thought he was wasting his time. Admiral was in a meeting at the United Nations Defense Council when her phone rang. She was 58 years old, with gray hair and a face that rarely smiled. She had lost her husband in the Mars uprising. She had buried too many soldiers. She answered the phone, listened for 10 seconds, and then stood up so fast her chair fell over. "Turn on the screens," she said, "all of them now." Every screen on Earth changed at the same moment. Every television, every phone, every computer. They all showed the same image, a tall, gray-skinned creature with 4 eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. It wore golden armor and looked at the camera like a farmer looking at cattle. "Creatures of Earth," the alien said, "I am Supreme Commander of the Empire. Your planet now belongs to us. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. If you do not, we will destroy your cities, kill your leaders, and take your world by force. Resistance is foolish. We have conquered 400 star systems. You are nothing to us. You have 72 hours. The message ended. The screens went black, and for one long moment the entire planet was silent. Then the chaos began. People screamed, people cried. People ran through the streets without knowing where they were going. Religious leaders declared it was the end of the world. Stock markets crashed. Governments held emergency meetings. Some leaders talked about surrender. Some talked about prayer. Some simply disappeared. But something else happened too, something the never expected. In Washington, the American president called the Chinese premier. These two nations had been rivals for over 200 years. They had fought economic wars, cyber wars, and nearly real wars. But now, the president said 4 words that changed everything. "We need your help." The premier replied with 3 words, "You have it." In Moscow, the Russian defense minister opened a secure file that had been classified for 50 years. It contained plans for weapons that had never been built because they were too dangerous, too expensive, too insane. He sent the file to every nation on Earth. In Seoul, Captain received orders to report to the newly formed United Earth Defense Fleet. Ships from 50 different nations were being combined into one force. Soldiers who had been trained to fight each other were now standing side by side. It happened in hours, not days, not weeks, hours. Dr. Park was pulled from his laboratory and brought to a secret military base. "You wanted to find aliens," Admiral told him. "Congratulations. Now help us kill them." Looked at the data from transmissions. Their technology was advanced, yes, but not magical, not impossible. We can fight them, he said. We can hurt them, but we need time. We have 72 hours, Admiral replied. Then we better work fast. Around the world, something amazing was happening. Old enemies were becoming allies. India and Pakistan shared military secrets. Israel and Iran coordinated defense plans. North and South Korea opened their border for the first time in decades. Soldiers crossed the line not to fight, but to shake hands. A French general and a German general met at a base in Belgium. Their grandfathers had fought against each other in ancient wars. Their fathers had been enemies. But now they looked at each other and nodded. "For Earth," the French general said. "For Earth," the German general agreed. In the fleet, commander watched the human response with confusion. "Supreme Commander," he said, "the humans are not surrendering, they are organizing." Did not look up from his meal. Let them organize. What difference does it make? They have 300 ships. We have 2,000. They have primitive nuclear weapons. We have plasma cannons that can crack a planet in half. Let them organize their own funeral. But sir, they united so quickly. Every nation on their planet is now working together. I have never seen a species do this. Finally looked at his commander. That is because you have never seen a species so desperate. They know they cannot win. This is simply panic. When we destroy their first fleet, they will surrender. They always do. The 72 hours passed. The fleet entered the solar system. 2,000 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They moved past Pluto, past Neptune, past Uranus. They expected to receive a surrender signal at any moment. Instead, they received something else. Admiral stood before a camera. Behind her, the flags of every nation on Earth hung together. Her voice was broadcast not just to humanity, but to the fleet as well. "Creatures of the Empire," she said, "you have made a terrible mistake. You looked at humanity and saw a divided species. You saw our wars, our conflicts, our disagreements. You thought this made us weak." She paused. Her eyes were hard as stone. "You were wrong. We fight each other because we are warriors. Every human is born with the heart of a soldier. We have been at war since we climbed down from the trees. We have fought with sticks, with swords, with guns, with bombs. We have never stopped fighting. Not once. Not ever." She leaned forward. "And now, for the first time in our history, all 8 billion of us are pointed in the same direction. At you." She smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "You wanted war with Earth. You have it. Come and take our planet if you can." The transmission ended. On the bridge of his flagship stared at the blank screen. For a moment, just a moment, he felt something cold in his chest. It was not fear, had never felt fear, but it was something close. He pushed the feeling away. "All ships," he commanded, "advance, destroy them all." The war for Earth had begun. Captain stood on the bridge of the horizon, watching the enemy fleet approach on her screen. The numbers were impossible. 2,000 warships against 340 human vessels. 6-to-1 odds. Her tactical computer kept calculating their chances of survival. It kept returning the same number, 0. She turned off the computer. "All ships," she said into her communicator, "this is Captain, I know the odds. You know the odds, but I want you to remember something. Every person on Earth is watching us right now. 8 billion people are counting on us. Our families, our friends, our children." She paused, looking at the faces of her crew. Some were Korean like her. Others were American, Russian, Brazilian, Nigerian, Japanese. 2 weeks ago, some of them had been enemies. Now they were brothers and sisters. "We are not here to win," continued. "We are here to hurt them. We are here to make them bleed. We are here to show them that Earth will not go quietly. So today we fight. And if we die standing up." The bridge erupted in cheers. Soldiers from 50 nations screaming as one voice. The fleet did not bother with formations. Commander looked at the tiny human fleet and laughed. "They are actually going to fight," he said. "How amusing. All ships forward, crush them quickly. I want to reach Earth by dinner." The two fleets moved toward each other. They expected the humans to fire their primitive weapons and die in minutes. They expected this to be easy. They were wrong. The human fleet suddenly scattered. Ships flew in every direction, weaving between asteroids, using the debris of the belt as cover. This was not how civilized species fought. Where was their formation? Where was their honor? "What are they doing?" demanded. Before anyone could answer, the universe exploded. Hidden inside hundreds of asteroids were nuclear warheads. Humanity had spent the last 3 days mining the belt, hiding bombs everywhere they could. As the fleet passed through, the bombs detonated. Hundreds of nuclear explosions lit up space like a second sun. 200 ships died in the first 5 minutes. They were vaporized before they could even raise their shields. The proud fleet of the Empire was suddenly burning. "Impossible," screamed. "This is impossible." But it was not impossible, it was human. Captain led her squadron directly into the chaos. Her ship was small, fast, and crewed by pilots who had nothing to lose. They weaved between burning vessels, firing missiles into weak points, targeting engines and weapon systems. "They are like insects," an officer shouted. "They will not hold still." That was exactly the point. Humans could not match technology, they could not match numbers, but they could move faster, think faster, and adapt faster. Every human pilot had grown up playing video games, flying drones, racing cars. Their reflexes were sharp, their minds were quick, and they were very, very angry. Lieutenant's younger brother commanded a small attack ship called the Arrow. He was only 26 years old, with the same dark eyes as his sister. He had joined the military because of her. He had always wanted to be like her. "Sister," he called over the communicator, "I see an opening, the carrier on the left. Its shields are damaged." Checked her screen. He was right. One of the massive carriers had taken damage from the nuclear blasts. Its shields were flickering, but the path to reach it was through heavy enemy fire. "It is too dangerous," she said. "Pull back." "If we destroy that carrier, we take out 50 of their fighters, 50 ships. That could save hundreds of our people." Closed her eyes. She knew he was right. She also knew what it would cost. And she whispered, "Tell Mother I love her," he said, "and tell her I was not afraid." The Arrow shot forward like its name, flew through a storm of plasma fire, spinning and dodging, using every trick he had ever learned. Behind him, fighters tried to follow. They could not keep up. No one could keep up with a human who had accepted death. He reached the carrier. He fired every weapon he had directly into the gap in its shields. Then, when his weapons were empty, he did something they could not understand. He flew his ship directly into the carrier's engine core. The explosion was beautiful. The carrier broke apart, taking 47 fighters with it, was gone, but he had died on his feet, fighting just like his ancestors. On the horizon, watched the explosion. Her hands gripped the arms of her chair so hard her knuckles turned white. She did not cry. There was no time to cry. "All ships," she said, her voice steady, "continue the attack." The battle raged for 6 hours. 6 hours of fire and death and blood. The human fleet was being destroyed, but they refused to break. Every ship that died took enemies with it. Every pilot who fell fought until their last breath. Admiral commanded from the rear, coordinating the chaos. She was too old for frontline combat, but she refused to stay safe on Earth. "If my soldiers die," she had said, "I will die with them." When a boarding party breached her ship, she grabbed a rifle and fought them herself. She was 58 years old, gray-haired, with bad knees and old wounds. She killed 11 before her soldiers reached her. "Admiral," a young soldier shouted, "are you hurt?" Wiped alien blood from her face. "I am fine, get back to your post." On the flagship, Supreme Commander watched the battle with growing unease. This was not how conquest was supposed to work. Primitive species were supposed to surrender. They were supposed to beg for mercy. They were not supposed to fly their ships into enemy vessels like missiles. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded. 600, Supreme Commander. Could not believe it. 600 ships against 300 humans. This tiny, primitive species had destroyed 600 warships in a single battle. "Sir," Commander said carefully, "perhaps we should request reinforcements." Wanted to refuse. He wanted to say that reinforcements were unnecessary, but he looked at the battle data and he could not deny the truth. These humans were not like other species. They fought like demons. They died like heroes. And they never, ever stopped. "Send the request," he said quietly, "and tell the High Command. Tell them these creatures are more dangerous than we expected." The Battle of Jupiter's moons ended after 8 hours. The human fleet was nearly destroyed. Only 60 ships survived out of 340. Captain was among the survivors. Her ship was damaged, her crew was bleeding, but she was alive. The fleet had lost 600 ships. 600. The greatest single-day loss in military history. As they regrouped and continued toward Earth, the surviving human ships did not retreat. They did not run. They pulled together, repaired what they could, and prepared to fight again. "Are we going to stop them?" a young officer asked. She looked at Earth, a blue dot in the distance. Her home, her mother, the graves of her father and now her brother. "No," she said honestly. "We cannot stop them, but we can hurt them. We can make them pay for every inch. We can make them remember that Earth did not fall easily." She turned to her crew. "Today we showed them what humans are made of. Tomorrow we show them again. And again. Until they are afraid to fight us. Until they understand that this war will cost them everything." Far away, on the High Command received message. They read the casualty reports. They saw the footage of human pilots flying suicide runs without hesitation. For the first time in 10,000 years, the leaders of the Empire felt something they had forgotten existed. Fear. The fleet entered Earth's orbit on a cold morning in March. Supreme Commander stood on his bridge, looking down at the blue planet. It was beautiful, he admitted. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It would make a fine addition to the Empire. "Begin bombardment," he ordered. "Target their major cities. Show them what happens to those who resist." The plasma cannons fired. Beams of light fell from the sky like the anger of gods. Seoul was hit first, then Tokyo, then New York, then London, Moscow, Beijing, Mumbai, Cairo. One by one, the great cities of Earth began to burn. 2 billion people died in the first week. Expected surrender. Every species surrendered after bombardment. It was simply logical. Why continue fighting when you had already lost? But no surrender came. Instead, something strange happened. Recruitment centers around the world were overwhelmed, not with people trying to escape, but with people trying to enlist. Lines stretched for kilometers. Old men who had not held a weapon in 40 years stood next to teenagers who had never held one at all. They all wanted to fight. Factories that had made cars and phones and toys switched to making weapons. Workers who had never seen a gun learned to build missiles. Women who had been teachers and nurses learned to shoot. Children who had been playing video games learned to pilot drones. Dr. Park worked in a bunker beneath the ruins of Seoul. The city above him was ash and rubble. His apartment was gone. His laboratory was gone. Everything he had built over 20 years was destroyed. But he was still alive, and he had a job to do. His team had captured technology from the first battle. They were studying it, taking it apart, trying to understand it. They were advanced, but they were not magical. Their shields had frequencies. Their weapons had weaknesses. Everything could be beaten if you understood it well enough. Lee was his best assistant. She was only 28 years old, a physicist who had been studying dark matter before the war. Now she was studying alien shields. She had not slept in 4 days. Her eyes were red, her hands were shaking, and she was running on coffee and rage. "Dr. Park," she said one morning, her voice cracking with exhaustion, "I found it, the shield frequency, I found it." Looked at her data. She was right. If they could build a device that matched this frequency, they could disable shields completely. It would not be easy. It would require a pilot to fly directly into an enemy ship and detonate the device manually. It was a suicide mission. "How many can we build?" he asked. 20, maybe 30 if we work fast." "Start building." Above them the bombardment continued, but something was changing. They had expected Earth to be empty of resistance by now. Instead, they faced attacks from everywhere. Human ships, repaired and rebuilt, struck at their supply lines. Missiles launched from hidden bases. Satellites turned into weapons. Ordered ground troops to land. If the humans would not surrender from orbit, he would make them surrender on the ground. 20,000 soldiers descended on Earth, the finest warriors in the galaxy. They were 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor, bred for combat over hundreds of generations. They landed in what had been Korea and Japan, expecting easy victory. They found hell instead. Had been a schoolteacher before the war. She was 35 years old, small and quiet, the kind of person nobody noticed. She had taught history to middle school students. She had never fired a weapon in her life. Now she led a resistance cell of 200 fighters in the ruins of. They had no tanks. They had no aircraft. They had rifles, grenades, and homemade explosives. They had rage. When the patrol entered their territory, gave the signal, explosions erupted from buildings, from cars, from the rubble itself. Fell as bullets found the gaps in their armor. The patrol tried to fight back, but they could not see their enemies. Humans attacked from everywhere and nowhere, from rooftops and sewers and basements. The patrol was wiped out in 20 minutes. Not a single survived. When reinforcements arrived, they found a message painted on a wall in the blood of their fallen soldiers. "Welcome to Earth." Was eventually captured. They tortured her for information. She told them nothing. When the interrogator threatened to kill her, she spat in his face. "Kill me," she said. 1,000 more will take my place. You cannot kill us all, and even if you do, our ghosts will haunt you forever." She died the next morning, but she was right. 1,000 more did take her place, and then 10,000, and then 100,000. Every human who could hold a weapon fought. Grandmothers fired rifles from hospital windows. Children threw bottles of fire. Wounded soldiers crawled toward the enemy with grenades in their hands. They had never faced anything like this. In their experience, there were warriors and there were civilians. You killed the warriors and enslaved the civilians. Simple, efficient. It had worked for 10,000 years. But on Earth there was no difference. Every human was a warrior. Every house was a fortress. Every street was a battlefield. Walked through a zone 1 week after landing. Bodies lay everywhere, both human and. The air smelled of smoke and death. His guards surrounded him nervously, watching every shadow. A sound made him turn. In the rubble of a collapsed building, a human woman lay dying. She was young, maybe 25, with blood soaking her clothes. A child, perhaps 3 years old, cried beside her. The woman was clearly in her final moments. Watched curious, he expected her to beg, to plead for the life of her child. That was what defeated creatures did. Instead, the woman looked directly at him. Her eyes held no fear, only hatred, pure, burning hatred. "My son will remember," she whispered. "He will grow up, he will find you, and he will kill you." She died with those words on her lips, still shielding her child with her broken body. Stood there for a long moment. He had conquered hundreds of worlds. He had killed millions of creatures, but he had never seen anything like that look in her eyes. She was dying, defeated, helpless, and she was still fighting, still threatening, still refusing to break. He ordered his guards to take the child to a holding facility. As he walked away, he could not shake the feeling that something was very wrong. These humans were not like other species. They did not think like other species. They did not surrender like other species. 3 months into the war, Earth had lost 4 billion people. Half of all humans were dead. The planet was by bombardment, covered in ash and ruins. By every logical measure, humanity had lost. But the fleet had lost half its ships. Their ground forces were being bled dry. Soldiers were refusing orders, terrified of the demons who hid in the rubble and attacked without warning. Sat alone in his quarters, writing a report to the emperor. His hand hesitated over the words. What could he say? That the mighty empire was struggling against primitive apes, that his soldiers were afraid to patrol at night, that every victory cost more than it was worth. He wrote the truth. Recommend strategic withdrawal. These beings are not like other species. They do not understand defeat. They do not accept surrender. They fight until death and beyond. I do not know how to beat an enemy that refuses to lose. The emperor's response came quickly. Request, continue the conquest. Victory is expected. Read the message, and felt something he had not felt in 200 years of war. Despair. On the ground, in a bunker beneath, Captain received a different message. It was from Dr. Park. The devices are ready, it said. We can kill their ships. We need volunteers. Looked at the message, then at the list of names below it. Volunteers who were willing to fly suicide missions, pilots who were ready to die. The list was 3,000 names long. She added her own name at the bottom, then sent it back. The war was not over, it was just beginning. 6 months. That was how long the war had lasted. 6 months of fire and blood and death. Half of humanity was gone. 4 billion souls burned to ash or buried in rubble. The great cities of Earth were ruins. The oceans were poisoned. The sky was gray with smoke. But humanity was still fighting. Captain stood in the command center beneath, looking at a map of Earth. Red zones covered most of the planet, areas controlled by forces. But between the red zones, like veins of blood, were blue lines. Resistance networks, underground bases, humans who refused to die. Admiral was dead. She had fallen 3 weeks ago, leading a counterattack against a patrol. Her last words had been broadcast to every human on Earth. Do not mourn me, fight for me. Now was in command. Fleet Admiral, the youngest person to ever hold the title. She had not wanted this. She had not asked for this, but her people needed a leader and she was still standing. Report, she said to her officers. The devices are ready, Dr. Park answered. He looked older than he had 6 months ago. His hair was gray, his face was thin, and his hands shook from too much coffee and too little sleep. 27 shield disruptors. Each one can disable a capital ship. But the pilot has to fly directly into the ship and detonate it manually. Finished. I know. How many volunteers? More than we have devices. We had to turn people away. Nodded. Of course there were more volunteers than needed. That was humanity. That was what the Never understood. Humans did not fight because they thought they could win. They fought because fighting was all they knew how to do. Lee stepped forward. She was one of the volunteers, the physicist who had discovered the shield frequency, the woman who had made the devices possible. I want to fly one of them, she said. Grabbed her arm. No, you are too valuable, we need you to. You need me to do what? She interrupted. Build more devices. There is no time. The final battle is coming. This is where I belong. Looked at the young woman, 28 years old. Brilliant, brave. She had a whole life ahead of her, but so did every other volunteer. You understand what you are asking, said. It was not a question. I do. Then the choice is yours. Smiled. It was a sad smile, but also proud. My grandmother survived the old wars, she said. She always told me that Koreans do not break. I guess I will prove her right. The final battle began on a Tuesday morning. The largest force yet landed on Earth. 50,000 soldiers, supported by heavy armor and air support. Their mission was simple: crush the remaining human resistance once and for all. They landed in what had been Korea and Japan, the heart of human resistance. They were met by 2 million human soldiers. 2 million from every nation on Earth. American Marines fought beside Chinese infantry. Russian special forces stood with Indian commandos. African soldiers, European soldiers, South American soldiers, all wearing the same uniform now, all fighting under the same flag, the flag of Earth. The battle lasted 11 days. On the third day, a unit of Korean Marines was ordered to hold a mountain pass. 500 soldiers against 10,000. Their commander was Sergeant, a 40-year-old veteran who had lost his wife in the first bombardment. "We cannot hold this position," his lieutenant said. "We should retreat." Looked at the pass. Behind them was a refugee camp, 20,000 civilians, mostly children and elderly. If they broke through, they would all die. "We hold," he said. For 36 hours, 500 humans held the pass against 10,000. They fought with rifles and grenades and knives. When they ran out of ammunition, they fought with rocks and fists. When they were too wounded to stand, they fought on their knees. Was the last one standing? He had been shot 5 times. His left arm was gone. He could barely see through the blood in his eyes. But he stood in the center of the pass, a grenade in his remaining hand, facing a wave of soldiers. He pressed the radio to his lips. "Tell my daughter I did not run," he said. Then he pulled the pin and charged. The explosion killed him and 20. More importantly, it bought enough time for reinforcements to arrive. The pass was held. The refugees survived. Became a legend. But he was not alone. There were thousands of stories like his. Millions of acts of courage that would never be recorded. Humans fighting and dying for each other, for strangers, for the idea that Earth would not fall. On the 8th day, Lee flew her mission. Her ship was small, barely more than a cockpit with an engine. The shield disruptor was strapped beneath her, a bomb that would end her life and hopefully take a carrier with it. She flew through a storm of enemy fire. Plasma bolts burned past her so close she could feel the heat. Her shields failed. Her engine was hit, but she kept flying. Dr. Park watched from the command center, his hands gripping the console. He whispered into the communicator, "You can still turn back. It is not too late." "Yes, it is," she replied. Her voice was calm, peaceful. "Thank you, Doctor, for everything. Tell them I was not afraid." She hit the carrier at full speed. The shield disruptor activated. The carrier's shields dropped, and then her bomb detonated. The explosion was visible from Earth, a new star in the sky burning for just a moment, then darkness. Park stood at his console for a long time, unable to move, unable to speak. Another name to add to the list of the dead, another friend gone. But there was no time to mourn. There was never time to mourn. By the 11th day, the offensive had failed. They had expected to crush human resistance in hours. Instead, they had lost 30,000 soldiers. Their remaining troops were exhausted, terrified, and demoralized. Soldiers began surrendering, not many at first, then dozens, then hundreds. These were warriors from a species that had never known defeat, laying down their weapons and begging for mercy. When asked why they surrendered, they all said the same thing: "We cannot beat them. They do not stop. They do not fear. They are not like us. They are something else." Supreme Commander received the reports in his quarters. Half his fleet was gone. His ground forces were broken. The humans had captured ships and were already learning to fly them. He looked at himself in the mirror. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow. He had not slept properly in months. Every night he saw them, human faces, human eyes, that mother dying in the rubble, still threatening him with her last breath. He finally understood. The Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked a species that did not know how to surrender, a species that would burn the galaxy down before accepting defeat. Fleet Admiral stood in the ruins of Sol, watching the sun rise over her broken city. They had won. Not the war, not yet, but this battle, this impossible, bloody, beautiful battle. She thought of her brother. She thought of Admiral. She thought of Lee and all the millions who had died. "We are coming for them," she said quietly. "We are going to take the war to their worlds, and we are going to make them pay for everything." Behind her, her officers nodded. They were ready. Humanity was ready. They had come to conquer Earth. Instead, they had awakened something they could not control. 8 billion humans had become 2 billion, but those 2 billion were no longer scattered, divided, fighting each other. They were united. They were angry, and they had learned to fly ships. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you made humanity desperate. It was not going to be pretty. 1 year after the invasion began, Fleet Admiral stood on the bridge of the Defiance. It was humanity's first true warship, built with technology and human rage. Behind her flew 200 more ships, crewed by soldiers who had lost everything and feared nothing. Their destination was the Admiral, her navigator said, "We are entering space." Nodded. She looked different now than she had a year ago. Her hair had streaks of gray, though she was only 35. Her eyes were harder. Her hands never shook anymore. She had seen too much death to be afraid of anything. "All ships," she announced. "This is Admiral. We are no longer defending. We are attacking. They came to our home and killed half our people. Now we go to their home, not to destroy them, not to become like them, but to show them and every other species in this galaxy that Earth will never be a victim again." The human fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed. In the engine rooms, captured drives hummed with power. Human engineers had learned to operate them in weeks. They had improved them in months. Humans were good at learning. Humans were good at adapting. It was what had kept them alive. Their first target was not it was a slave world called, where they kept millions of conquered aliens in chains. The species there, had been slaves for 300 years. They had forgotten what freedom felt like. The human fleet appeared in orbit without warning. The garrison never stood a chance. Within hours, the planet was free. Dr. Park was among the first humans to land. He was no longer just a scientist. He was Earth's chief diplomat, responsible for making contact with other species. He walked through the streets of the capital, surrounded by aliens who looked at him with confusion and fear. They were small, blue-skinned, with large eyes and delicate hands. They had been builders once, artists, creators. They had turned them into miners, slaves who dug precious metals from their own planet. An elderly approached. He moved slowly, his body bent from years of hard labor. "Why?" he asked. "Why did you help us? We are nothing to you. We have nothing to offer." Thought about the question. A year ago, he had been a scientist in a laboratory, searching for alien life. Now he stood on an alien world, surrounded by creatures who had been slaves for generations. He thought about Lee, who had given her life to save strangers. He thought about all the humans who had died fighting for a future they would never see. "Because someone should have helped us," he said finally. "When they came to Earth, we were alone. No one warned us. No one came to save us. We had to save ourselves. But that does not mean we will let others suffer the same way." The elder stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly tears began to fall from his large eyes. "We thought we were forgotten," he whispered. "We thought no one cared." "We care," said. "Humans care, and we will not stop until every chain in this galaxy is broken." The liberation was the first of many. The human fleet moved through space like a storm, freeing world after world. They did not conquer. They did not enslave. They freed the captured, armed the willing, and moved on. Stories began to spread across the galaxy. Stories of a species from a small blue planet who had refused to die. Stories of soldiers who smiled as they charged into battle. Stories of ships that fought until they were nothing but burning wreckage and still kept firing. The conquered species of the galaxy began to hope, and hope was more dangerous to the Empire than any weapon. Supreme Commander retreated with what remained of his fleet to the. He had lost everything: his reputation, his soldiers, his sense of invincibility. He stood before the Emperor, his head bowed in shame. "You have failed me," the Emperor said. His voice was cold as ice. "You promised a quick victory. Instead, you have brought ruin upon us." "The humans are not like other species," replied. "They do not fight like other species. They do not think like other species. I do not know how to defeat them." "Then I will find someone who does." But there was no one. The generals studied human tactics and found them illogical, unpredictable, insane. Humans did not follow the rules of war. They made their own rules, and they changed those rules whenever it suited them. The human fleet reached the 6 months after leaving Earth. 200 ships against the last 1,000 defenders of the Empire. The odds were still against humanity, but odds had stopped mattering a long time ago. Fleet Admiral looked at on her screen. It was a beautiful planet much like Earth. Green forests, blue oceans, white clouds. Billions of lived there. Families, children, people who had never chosen this war. "Admiral," her weapons officer said, "we have firing solutions on their major cities. We can end this now. One bombardment and they will be finished." Was silent for a long moment. She thought about Seoul burning. She thought about her brother dead in the first battle. She thought about Lee flying into a carrier with a smile on her face. She thought about the 4 billion humans who would never come home. She wanted revenge. Every cell in her body screamed for it. To burn their cities like they had burned hers. To make them feel what she had felt. To show them the same mercy they had shown Earth. But that was not why she had come. "Open a channel," she said. "All frequencies." The communication officer looked surprised but obeyed. "Channel open, Admiral." Stood and faced the screen. She knew that billions were watching. She knew that the Emperor himself was listening. "People of the Empire," she said. "1 year ago you came to our world. You killed half our species. You burned our cities. You murdered our children. You thought we were weak. You thought we would surrender." She paused, letting the words sink in. "You were wrong. We did not surrender. We fought. We bled. We died, but we never stopped fighting. And now we are here with weapons pointed at your cities. We could destroy you. We have every right. Justice would be on our side." She took a breath. "But we are not you. We did not come here to commit genocide. We did not come here to become monsters. We came here to end this war, not through destruction but through choice." She held up a document. "These are our terms. Release all conquered species. Dismantle your war fleet. Pay reparations to every world you have harmed. In return, we will leave. We will not destroy your planet. We will not enslave your people. We will give you the mercy you never gave us." She lowered the document. "You have 1 hour to decide. Choose wisely." The Emperor surrendered in 43 minutes. 10 years later, the galaxy was a different place. The Empire was gone, replaced by a council of free species. Earth had been rebuilt, though the scars remained. The ruins of old cities had become memorials. The names of the dead were carved into walls of black stone that stretched for kilometers. Dr. Park was old now. His hair was white, his body was failing, and he walked with a cane. But his mind was still sharp. He spent his days teaching young aliens about humanity, trying to explain the unexplainable. "How did you survive?" a young student asked him one day. "They were so powerful, you were so few, how did you not give up?" Smiled. It was a question he had been asked many times. "We did not know we were supposed to lose," he said. "Humans are strange that way. We never accept that something is impossible until after we have already done it." Fleet Admiral had retired to a small house in the Korean countryside, near the rebuilt city of Seoul. She had finally allowed herself to grieve. She had cried for 3 days straight, letting out years of pain and loss. Then she had dried her tears, made breakfast, and started writing. Her book was called The Earth War. The first line read, "They thought we were weak because we fought each other. They did not understand. We fought each other to stay sharp. And when a true enemy came, we showed them what 8 billion warriors could do." Far away, a child asked its parent about the old enemy. "The humans." The parent looked toward the stars, toward a distant yellow sun. "Never threaten a human, never harm a human, never make a human desperate." "Why not?" "Because when humans are desperate, they become something else, something that cannot be stopped. They will burn the galaxy down to protect their own. They will sacrifice everything, even themselves. And the worst part." "What?" "They will feel bad about it afterward. They will cry over their enemies and build monuments to peace. But if you threaten them again, they will do it all over, without hesitation, without mercy, without stopping until you are no longer a threat." The child thought about this for a moment. "Are they monsters?" The parent was quiet for a long time. "No," it finally said. "They are something more complicated. They are creatures who will die for strangers and kill for family. They are beings who can create great art and great destruction with equal passion. They are a species that hates war but has never stopped fighting." "I do not understand." "Neither do they," the parent said. "That is what makes them so dangerous. They do not understand themselves. They just keep going, keep fighting, keep surviving, no matter what the universe throws at them." The parent looked at the stars one more time. "The galaxy has many powerful species, but there is only one that the Empire learned to fear, only one that we tell our children about in warning, only one that took everything we threw at them and threw it back twice as hard. The humans." "Yes, the humans. Never forget what they are capable of. Never forget what happens when you push them too far, and never, ever make them fight for their home." The child looked up at the stars, at the small yellow sun that was humanity's home. It seemed so far away, so insignificant. But the child knew better now. Some things were not as small as they appeared. Some things were just waiting for a reason to show their true size. And humanity had shown the galaxy exactly how big it could be.